Welcome to my views and news. Ethio 360 Studio 1, Studio 2, Studio 3, Studio 4, Studio 5. Firstly, I want to share with you the plight, if it's the right word, of Ethio 360 journalists. One after the other, their YouTube channels are being blocked. Who is blocking their YouTube channels? What is the Ethiopian government's role? Secondly, was Tigray seems to have erased, Tigray Orthodox Church seems to have erased the name of Ethiopia from its banners, from its stamps, etc. A bishop was interviewed by a Tigrayan journalist a few hours ago. He confirmed that Ethiopia, name of Ethiopia, has been completely erased. Thirdly, viewers, Gojjam, 8 deaths are being confirmed in Gojjam within the last 48 hours. We know that in Gojjam, in West Gojjam, a security operation has been underway against Fano fighters by Ethiopian army. And Fano fighters tried to involve local rose in support of Fano fighters. There was confrontation between security forces and people of 3 towns. Now 8 casualties being confirmed by several sources. We have details of where these people were killed. Were they killed in fighting? Were they just protesters unarmed? Fourthly, viewers, Eritrea, while Eritrea has rejoined IGAD, a bad news for Eritrea is that IGAD's presidency is now in the hands of a country with which Eritrean relations are not very friendly. And lastly, Sudan, viewers, where in the next 10 days, a key meeting is expected between 4 African leaders and the warring generals of Sudan. Warring generals means Hamati, Hamdan Dagalo, and the other one, Army Military Chief Abdul Fattah al-Burhan. And secondly, friends of Sudan, the countries supporting Sudan, have rejected the decision made by Sudanese government, Sudanese military to declare UN Special Envoy Volker Perthes as persona non grata. Volker Perthes will continue his work reportedly. How will he continue his work when the Sudanese government has declared him persona non grata? Firstly, viewers, Ethio 360 was one of the most watched YouTube channels by Ethiopians. Ethiopians living in Ethiopia, Ethiopian diaspora. It had massive following. Ethiopian government a few weeks ago leveled allegations against Ethio 360 journalists that they were part of a plot to overthrow Ethiopian government, to create instability in Ethiopia. Ethiopian government mentioned names of several journalists, activists, political workers, intellectuals. Some were arrested, some were being pursued. Ethio 360 journalists were named as well by the government. And after that, we saw that one after the other, all Ethio 360 YouTube channels were blocked. Ethio 360 blocked channel with daily viewership of more than 300K sometimes. Then they created Ethio 360 TV, again blocked. After that, Ethio 360 Studio 1 blocked, Studio 2 blocked, Studio 3 blocked, Studio 4 blocked. Studio 5 is now being used by Ethio 360 Studio 5 YouTube channel is now being used by journalists to upload their videos, their lives as well. All their earlier YouTube channels have been blocked. Though they're trying to find an alternative to, they're working on Twitter, they're uploading videos to Twitter, uploading videos to Facebook, they are on Rumble too, and they are on satellite too. Marriager TV satellite is also airing their content. But they have lost contact with their viewership. They have been hurt. Their viewership hurt. Who is behind it? Is YouTube blocking their YouTube channels? Is Ethiopian government behind this blocking of the channels? What we have learned is Ethiopian government is reporting. Ethiopian government reports their content, their channels, reports to YouTube. YouTube bans their channels. So one after the other, their channels have been banned, several banned. Only Ethio 360 Studio 5 is available. Let's see how long can it survive. Government has decided to chase government critics. Journalists criticizing the government, no matter where they are. We know that a journalist was arrested from a neighboring country who was also accused of being part of the plot to overthrow the government. He was arrested in Djibouti a few weeks ago. Ethio 360 journalists can be blamed as well, because when they report, they don't report as a neutral journalist. Sometimes their reporting create conflicts. They don't share both sides of the story sometimes. So that is why they are to be blamed as well, like Ethiopian government. By the way, they did not face this type of crackdown, this type of restriction and problem even when EPRDF was in power. TPLF-led EPRDF was not soft on journalists, but even then they did not suffer this much. They say that this is perhaps the hardest time for them. And Ethiopian government will try to contact US government as well to get them expelled from the US. No, it's difficult. US government ensures freedom of expression. At the same time, hate speech is not accepted. Let's see how long these Ethiopian journalists can survive on YouTube. Secondly, viewers, Tigray Orthodox Church, Tigray Orthodox Church, TOTC, has completely erased the name of Ethiopia from its correspondence, from its seals, from its banners, from its posters. Now, the writing that is being used by the diocese in Tigray is like this: Tigray Orthodox Church, the Sea of Silama, Kisate Birhan. And next is the name of the diocese, East Zone, Adegrat Diocese, etc. There is no Ethiopia in this writing. A Tigrayan bishop was interviewed by a Tigrayan journalist a few hours ago. He also confirmed that the name of Ethiopia has been completely erased. Though Tigray Church so far has not elected a new patriarch, it has not formed a new synod, but Marha Christos, Tigray Archbishop, a few days ago was quoted by US State Department in US State Department report on religious freedom in Ethiopia that the Tigray Church was planning to form a synod too, and obviously then a patriarch would be elected as well. Interestingly, 3 days ago, we heard from public relations officer of Ethiopian Orthodox Church. He said that on Monday, the church will brief about the efforts, the start of efforts for reconciliation with the Tigray Orthodox Church. Monday passed, today is Tuesday, nothing was said by the Orthodox Church, main church led by Abune Matthias, the patriarch, who is a Tigrayan too. The church a few weeks ago announced that it had formed a committee of notables, Ethiopian prominent personalities, including religious elders, to go to Tigray and to talk to the Tigray archbishops for reconciliation. That visit by the delegation did not happen. It was postponed reportedly. So it means that the announcements being made by the main church are not working. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we heard announcement that the main church had invited Tigray archbishops to come to Addis Ababa for a meeting to resolve the issues existing between the two sides. Again, we did not hear from the church, no follow-up. What happened? Did Tigray archbishops attend the meeting in Addis Ababa? They did not. Church kept quiet. So the church's calls for reconciliation are being resisted by Tigray diocese. Tigray diocese are of this view that they were neglected by the church when the war was ongoing in Tigray. The war was blessed by the main church. Some church archbishops, they supported the war. And in that war, Tigray clergy suffered, Tigray Orthodox priests were killed. Back then, the church remained silent. The church should apologize. And that Marha Christos was quoted by US State Department in that report that the link with the main church or the Orthodox of Ethiopia has been broken. We don't want to be with killers. That is what is said by Tigray Orthodox Church. By the way, behind Tigray Church decision to remain split is a political decision. Politics and religion are linked in Ethiopia. I've been saying for several months that PM Abiy's government, Oromia regional government, they don't want reconciliation between the Tigray church and the main church. Why? Because they want main church to be weakened. Why? Because they think that main church is being dominated by Amhara archbishops, by Amhara ethnic group. That is why we saw a revolt a few months ago when some archbishops tried to form a breakaway faction, mainly based in Oromia. That effort partially succeeded, though it did not get massive following in Oromia. So, Oromia and Tigray Orthodox churches want to be relatively separate and independent. They want more than one decision-making centers of Orthodox Church in Ethiopia. That is what PM Abiy's government wants to reportedly. Because the united church turns into a threat to the government. Government cannot go against the wishes of the church. That is why federal government wants, my perception, it wants Tigray and Oromia Orthodox churches to be separate, to some extent independent. Thirdly, viewers, Gojjam, where 8 deaths are being confirmed in the last 48 hours. In Gojjam, West Gojjam, an operation has been ongoing against Fano fighters. We saw security operation in East Gojjam, Debre Elias, where a monastery was stormed by security forces. Security forces claim to have killed more than 200 Fano fighters in Debre Elias. Then security forces turned to West Gojjam, Dambecha. In Dambecha, they surrounded Fano fighters and fighting started on Sunday night. It went on for several hours. Then locals intervened. Local youth began protests against Ethiopian army. Ethiopian army's convoys were stopped. Ethiopian army supply lines were cut off. Why? Because in Finot-e-Selam, in Jega, in Dambacha, people took to the streets. Several roads were blocked. We saw pictures of Amhara youth blocking Ethiopian army in Jega between Finot-e-Selam and Dambacha. And now it has been confirmed that in Finot-e-Selam, security forces fired at protesters. I reported that last night. I could not confirm the number of deaths. Number of deaths has increased, in fact. Now, reportedly, the number of deaths has increased to 8. So far in Dambacha, Jega, and Finot-e-Selam, 8 have died. And the 8 killed were civilians, unarmed civilians who stopped Ethiopian army convoys, stopped them from moving towards Dambacha. Secondly, deaths of 2 security officials are also being confirmed. Security officials obviously used tear gas, unarmed people. They resorted to hurling of stones. They threw stones. Some had wooden sticks as well. But I don't know. I have no information about locals being armed. Yes, Fano fighters are armed. In Dambacha, there was exchange of gunfire between Fano fighters and Ethiopian security forces. But civilians were killed in Finot-e-Selam, where there was no armed confrontation between security forces and locals. 2 security forces killed, security force members killed. What Fano fighters, their supporters wanted in Gojjam is happening. They wanted people to support the Fano struggle. And when people rise, Ethiopian army becomes helpless. We saw that in Gondar. Same is happening. That is why since last night, we have not been able to receive any reports about clashes between Fano fighters and Ethiopian army in Dambacha. It means in Dambacha there is calm because in Finot-e-Selam and Jega, security forces are unable to send the supplies towards Dambacha. So, Ethiopian army will have to abandon the operation in Dambacha, like it had to abandon operation to capture Massafint, Gondar Fano commander. Same is happening here. People supporting Fano fighters. 8 people are paying the price as well. That 8 killed. If 8 have been killed, you can imagine how many would be injured. Dozens reportedly. At the same time, security forces suffering too. Security deaths of 2 security officials confirmed. Not in combat death. I am not talking about deaths in the fighting between Fano fighters and Ethiopian army in Dambacha. I am talking about deaths in the confrontation between security forces and civilians, not Fano fighters. 8 deaths in this confrontation so far, and 2 deaths of security officials too. Fourthly, Eritrea. Eritrea has officially rejoined IGAD. Yesterday, Eritrean Foreign Minister Usman Saleh arrived in Djibouti to attend IGAD summit. Other IGAD leaders were there too. 8-member African countries bloc with Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, Uganda, Kenya as members. Most of the heads of states were there in Djibouti. Heads of state were there. Eritrea sent Usman Saleh. By the way, Yemeni Gabriel was there, special advisor to President of Eritrean rule. Yemeni is the man basically who is in charge of foreign ministry. But Yemeni was not seen when Isaias Afwerki visited China and Russia. So it was being rumored that Yemeni had either been sidelined or he was in trouble or that he was not well. He is weak. He looked very weak. So he might be facing some health problems. But he was in Djibouti with Usman Saleh. When Yemeni is there, it means Yemeni is the man in charge, not Usman Saleh. Though Usman Saleh is a foreign minister of Eritrea. Eritrea is back in IGAD. Eritrean Information Minister Yemanek confirmed yesterday, Yemanek Abdemaskal, that Eritrea had retaken its seat at IGAD. But who is now the president of IGAD? In yesterday's meeting, Djibouti took over as the president of IGAD. I think it was from so Djibouti is now the new president, new chair. Djibouti-Eritrea relations are not very friendly, by the way. Djibouti has been accusing Eritrea of supporting some groups operating on Djibouti-Eritrea border. They have been involved in border fighting too in the past. Djibouti-Eritrea border is closed. No one can enter Eritrea from Djibouti. So there are issues between the two countries. Now Djibouti is leading IGAD. Obviously, IGAD cannot be led by Djibouti alone. You need participation, involvement of all players when it comes to decision making. But it's not a good news that at a time when Eritrea wants to reactivate IGAD, that is what Isaias Afwerki said, that IGAD should be reactivated. Eritrea wants to reactivate IGAD. IGAD chair is being held by Ismail Omar, Djibouti, the president. Lastly, we are Sudan, where 4 African leaders are looking for a breakthrough. In the next 10 days, they are hoping to meet both Hamdan Dagalo and Abdul Fattah al-Burhan. Kenyan President William Ruto has confirmed that 4 African leaders will try to meet the 2 Sudanese warring generals in the next 10 days. The 4 African leaders are William Ruto from Kenya, President, PM Abiy from Ethiopia, Hassan Sheikh from Somalia, and Salva Kiir from South Sudan. This 4-member panel has already requested a meeting. Malik Agar, Deputy Chairman of Sudan Sovereignty Council, who attended IGAD's meeting, yesterday's meeting, has confirmed that IGAD has sent a request for this meeting. Can this meeting happen in the next 10 days? Let's see. The security situation is not favorable for the visit of these African leaders to Khartoum. Anything can happen in Khartoum, but these 4 African leaders, they want to meet the 2 generals. And by the way, they mentioned Hamathi too, so they believe Hamathi is alive. Hamathi is not dead, no doubt about no doubt in the minds of these African leaders. Hamathi is there leading his RSF fighters. Let's see, can the meeting happen? Can these 4 leaders convince the 2 generals to a ceasefire? We'll see. So far, news story for you is that the 4 African leaders want to meet the 2 generals in the next 10 days. And friends of Sudan are rejecting Sudanese government's decision to expel UN Special Envoy. UN Special Envoy Volker Perthes was declared persona non grata by Sudan Ministry of Foreign Affairs a few days ago. UN Secretary General refused to accept the decision. Volker Perthes was in Addis Ababa and now he is in Nairobi, Kenya, reportedly. He intends to continue his work from Nairobi, Kenya. Friends of Sudan are several influential countries helping Sudan, which can influence Sudan. These countries include US, UK, France, Canada, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Italy. This group was formed some time ago, and this group is supporting Sudanese government, Sudanese economy too. This group has rejected the decision made by Sudanese military to expel Volker Perthes. Friends of Sudan are still treating Volker Perthes as UN Special Envoy to Sudan. So they'll continue their engagements with Volker Perthes, though he's not in Sudan, he is in Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks for watching.